For 8 winters and 8 soft springs, Maeve learned how to become a shadow without ever meaning to. In the village of Larkhollow, people repeated the same warning in different voices, as if changing the tone could change the truth. Don't look north. Don't wander after dusk. Don't say his name out loud. They spoke of the Monster King as if the syllables themselves carried teeth. His name, Valerius, was rarely spoken. When it sounded like a prayer that had lost faith. Beyond the last fence post and the fields that turned silver with frost, the land rose into black pines and old stone. Somewhere in the distance stood Nightfall Keep, where the Vampire King waited behind ruined battlements and a moon-colored window. Mothers said he listened for crying. Fathers pretended they did not flinch at the sound of wings at night. Maeve had always been careful with words. Her mother used to say she saved them like coins. Then came the night she stopped spending them. It was late autumn, during the harvest blessing, lanterns swaying, apples piled high, an old song drifting over the crowd. At the edge of the clearing, Maeve saw the councilmen speaking in a tight circle, faces tense, glancing north as if the trees might answer. Maeve had slipped behind a shed, chasing a stray cat, when she heard the bargain, quiet, urgent, not meant for children. Tribute, one man said. A girl. Unclaimed. Or what? Another demanded. Or we lose the river. The road. The warmth, the first hissed. He doesn't slaughter. He doesn't raise. He simply turns his face away. And when the Monster King turns his face away, the world goes cold. Maeve pressed a hand over her mouth. Her father was gone. Her mother's health was fragile. Maeve was, in the council's language, convenient. The next morning her mother found her staring at a patch of sunlight on the table. What's wrong? She asked softly. Maeve, talk to me. Maeve tried. She opened her mouth to say they will take me north, but the truth snagged like thorns in her throat. She could already see her mother breaking. She swallowed hard. I'm fine, she managed. By evening, she could not make any other words come. Silence settled over her like a cloak she couldn't remove. The village called it shock, or stubbornness, or providence. Maeve knew it was survival. She stayed silent for 8 years, first to spare her mother, then to spare herself from pity that felt like ropes. When she turned 16, winter arrived early, and the council finally spoke aloud what they'd decided long ago. It's time, they told her mother, sliding away. The treaty must be honored. Her mother wept until her voice broke. Maeve held her and made no sound. If I could take your place, her mother whispered, I would. Maeve wished she could answer. But all she had were her arms, her steady breathing, and the stubborn warmth of holding on. On the morning they sent her north, they gave her a cloak and a basket of bread and dry berries, as if gifts could soften a legend. 2 guards escorted her beyond the last field. Maeve walked without resistance, not from acceptance, but because she'd learned the wrong struggle only tightened the net. The road into the woods felt older than the world. Snow muffled footsteps. Trees stood like tall listeners. Maeve's breath rose and vanished, and she wondered if people were the same, brief warmth in cold air. As twilight deepened, the guards grew nervous. Then one stumbled, his boot sinking into a drift. The snow collapsed beneath him, revealing a hidden sinkhole. Maeve grabbed his sleeve instinctively, but the weight pulled her forward too. The world tilted, cold rushed up. And then her fall stopped. A shadow moved, swift and silent, and Maeve was lifted, gently, impossibly, back onto the path. She stumbled, expecting harsh hands. Instead, careful fingers steadied her elbow, as if she were glass. She looked up. A man stood in the dusk, cloaked dark as wet stone. His face was pale but not dead pale, and his eyes were ember-red, steady, tired, and strangely human. The guards froze. One dropped to his knees. Valerius, the Monster King, glanced at the sinkhole and then at the trembling men. "You walk the old road without listening to it," he said, voice low and calm. "The forest has more patience than you deserve." The kneeling guard stammered, "My king." Valerius's gaze flicked to Maeve. Not hungry. Not cruel. Attentive. "Are you hurt?" he asked. Maeve opened her mouth. No sound came. Her throat tightened with the familiar lock of years. Valerius watched her, then nodded as if he understood without words. He turned to the guards. "Go back. Tell your council the treaty is fulfilled. Tell them she arrived safely. And tell them this, if they send another child north again, the road will close to them forever." The guards stared. This wasn't the monster they expected. They fled without arguing. Maeve stood alone with the king, the village's fear suddenly reduced to one quiet figure in falling snow. Valerius retrieved her basket, brushed off the frost, and offered it back with simple courtesy. "Come," he said. "It's cold." Nightfall Keep rose on the ridge like a memory more than a threat. Old stones, snow on ledges, a single warm light in a high window. Inside, the air smelled of cedar and dried herbs. A hearth burned in the main hall, its crackle like a sigh. Valerius led Maeve not to chains or darkness, but to a small room with a clean bed and warmed water. "This is yours," he said. Maeve searched him for the hidden price. "I will not harm you," Valerius said, as if reading her posture. "You are not prey. You are not payment. You are here because men are afraid of winter and call their fear a treaty." He placed a small pouch on the table. "Tea leaves. For sleep. If you want them." Then, carefully, he added, "You don't have to speak. Not to me." And he left, closing the door softly. That first night, Maeve listened to the keep's quiet, wind against stone, a distant clock, one set of footsteps in the hall that never lingered at her door. In the village, they said he listened for crying. In the keep, no one punished silence. Days passed. Maeve learned the rhythms of the place: warm kitchen, quiet library, servants who greeted her without staring. They treated her silence like a language they were willing to learn. Valerius appeared at a distance, never touching her, never pressing. When he spoke, it was ordinary: "Eat if you're hungry, wear your cloak, the library is warmer later." On the third day, Maeve wandered into a courtyard garden. In the center stood a bare tree tied with faded ribbons. "They are promises," Valerius said from the archway. Maeve touched a ribbon, soft and frayed. "Long ago," Valerius said, "villagers wanted a monster they could bargain with. Girls were sent here. I let them stay until they wished to leave. Most left. Some tied ribbons, as if it could keep them safe." Maeve's eyes stung. "You've been silent a long time," Valerius said, not accusing, only seeing. Maeve nodded. "I know what it is," he added quietly, "to let the world decide what you are before you speak." That night, Maeve saw him leave the keep. Curiosity drew her to follow at a careful distance through snow and moonlight. Valerius went to the frozen river that fed Larkhollow's fields. He knelt, pressed his hands to the ice, and closed his eyes. Slowly, patiently, the frost loosened. The ice thinned, not cracking violently, but yielding. Beneath it, the current began to move again, quiet and steady. Maeve's breath caught. In the village, they blamed the Monster King when the river ran low. But here he was, alone, making sure it didn't stop. When he finally stood, his shoulders looked heavier, as if the kindness cost him. Maeve's boot crunched softly, and Valerius turned, not startled, just aware. "You should be asleep," he said gently. Valerius looked back at the river. If the water stops, they suffer. If they suffer, they fear. If they fear, they look for a monster. It's a tired wheel. He didn't ask her to understand. He only said, "Come. Your hands will freeze." At the door he held it open for her, letting her step inside first, as if courtesy mattered even in a world built on fear. After that, Maeve began noticing more, small mercies that never announced themselves. During a blizzard, a traveling cart nearly vanished on the road. Valerius left the keep without calling guards. Later, the cart arrived safely, guided by lantern posts that had been dark for years, glowing one by one through the storm. The traveler stayed one night and left with food. Valerius didn't come to receive their thanks. Another day, Maeve found a raven with a bent wing. Valerius crouched, offered his hand, and the bird trusted him. With a subtle warmth that seemed to drain him more than it should, he eased the wing back into place. The raven flew away, and Valerius swayed briefly, relief crossing his face like quiet rain. Little by little, the keep stopped feeling like a prison. Maeve helped in the kitchen, washed cups, kneaded dough. The servants smiled. They spoke without demanding answers. And Valerius, always careful, always restrained, began to feel less like a legend and more like a man carrying a name that hurt. One evening in the library, he showed her old letters from those who had come before. "He gave me a room with a window," one read. "He never asked for what they said he would ask for. He listened when I could not speak. He taught me that fear is loud, but mercy is quieter." "They called me a monster," Valerius said simply. "At first I raged. Then I grew tired. If the world needs a monster to carry its fear, it will invent one." He closed the journal gently. "So I became what they needed. A shadow at the edge of their stories. A name they can blame instead of blaming winter or themselves." Maeve formed the question in her mind, "And what do you need?" so clearly it nearly became sound. Valerius looked at her as if he heard it. "I need nothing from you," he said softly. "Only this, don't let their fear become your whole life." That night Maeve sat at her desk with parchment and a quill. If her voice wouldn't come, her hand could. She wrote her name slowly, as if reclaiming it. Maeve. Then beneath it, "Thank you for not making me pay for their fear." In the morning she offered the folded note to Valerius. He took it as if it were fragile and precious. As he read, something softened in him, like moonlight breaking through cloud. "You wrote to me," he said. Maeve nodded, cheeks warm. "Maeve," he repeated quietly. "It's a beautiful name." He folded the note and tucked it inside his coat. "I will keep it." As winter eased toward spring, Larkhollow began to thrive. The river ran clean. The road stayed open longer. Storms still came, but the world felt less intent on breaking. And the village, embarrassed by its own survival, whispered new rumors. Not that the Monster King had grown kinder. No one dared say that. Instead they said, the tribute must have pleased him. Maeve heard it from travelers in the hall and felt anger rise, hot, unfamiliar, long denied. Valerius received the words with quiet courtesy, never correcting them, never taking credit. When the travelers left, Maeve looked at him, frustration bright in her eyes. "They will always shape the story to protect themselves," Valerius said softly. "It isn't fair," Maeve tried to say with her expression. "No," he agreed. "It isn't." Then, after a pause, he added, "But fairness isn't the only way to keep the world warm. Sometimes kindness is choosing to do good even when you won't be thanked for it." Maeve stood very still. She finally understood, his sacrifice wasn't power. It was restraint. It was choosing to mend what others broke, while letting them keep their comforting myth. Spring arrived like a secret told slowly. Snow retreated from the courtyard stones. The ribbon tree budded. Maeve went out one morning and tied her own ribbon to its branches, a strip of cloth from the hem of her old village dress. Valerius watched from the archway. Maeve pressed a hand to her throat, then to her heart. "I'm here. I'm still me. I remember." Valerius stepped into the pale sunlight. It didn't burn him the way old tales insisted. It only made him look more real, less monster, more lonely guardian. "Stay as long as you wish," he said. "Leave if you ever want to. The gate will not close against you." Maeve's eyes filled. This time she let the tears fall, not from fear, but from relief. She wrote in her notebook and held it up with trembling hands. "I stayed silent for 8 years to survive. But I think I can learn another way here." Valerius read it, and for a brief moment his composure slipped, revealing something tender underneath. "Then learn," he said quietly. "At your own pace." They stood in the courtyard with the budding tree between them, ribbons fluttering in the spring breeze, promises from frightened girls, from a feared king, and from Maeve, who no longer wanted to be a bargain. Far away, the world still feared the Monster King and told stories that made him darker than he was. But in the quiet spaces between those stories, Maeve saw the truth, a ruler who held darkness not to wield it, but to soften its edges. A king who let himself be misunderstood so others could sleep. And as the river ran clear and the days warmed, Maeve understood something that settled into her bones like a gentle certainty. True kindness could exist behind fear. Sometimes it had to.